Hey there, I am back with another Free the Pip Friday where we open up some of the rarest decks out there. And for this one, we're going to be looking at EVA White Rose from Thirdway Industries. This deck is a special one and it follows in the EVA line, which is a long-running deck series now, encompassing a total now of 7 different decks. But this one, even amongst those decks, is a little bit special. This is actually a bit of a companion deck to the original EVA Red Rose that was released on Black Friday just a couple of years ago. This is actually the hardest one of the EVA decks to get hold of. Only 100 of these were made. So not quite as limited with the EVA White Rose, but equally beautiful and one that's definitely going to be a centerpiece for collections everywhere. Now, there were only a couple of ways that you could get this deck. First of all was if you got some of the top box rewards on the recent EVA Legendary series that was launched on Kickstarter. But the second way, and one that you can actually still get a hold of now if you'd like, is the Thirdway Industries Patreon. If you're an annual member of the Patreon, you actually get access to some special annual rewards, and the 2022 reward is none other than the EVA White Rose deck. Now, I've been a fan of the Patreon of Thirdway for a very long time, highly recommended, and of course, not really much better motivation than for a beautiful deck like this one. So go check that out. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to check out the Patreon for yourself. But we're here to talk about the deck, so let's free the pip and see what it's all about. All right, so the EVA series is one that is one of my favorites in the entire Thirdway line. Features all female Quartz, beautiful custom designs throughout, and some fantastic mythology that's sprinkled in throughout. Specifically, it follows the stories of some of the first females of different mythologies, including, of course, Eve herself from Christian mythology. So we'll get to see some of the stories as we go through, but let's start off by looking at this beautiful tuck box. So the tuck box is done on a white pearlescent stock. You can see maybe some of that slight glimmer in the stock itself, and then it's covered with really beautiful deep embossing and this ice blue foil. It's a fantastic color combination, gives you that really wintry vibe to it overall, and beautiful artwork on the front. Of course, you get the image of Eve there with the apple, or Eva, with the apple, kind of a symbol. If you recognize the story of Eve in the Garden of Eden, you'll remember the significance of the apple, as well as the snakes curling up on the side. The snakes in Geo's mythology are actually named Prometheus, and they're sort of not necessarily good or bad, but a symbol of temptation that kind of moves some of the mythologies along. So we'll see that snake kind of as a recurring element. Beautiful little, almost hieroglyphic looking symbols here in the back. These are actually pictographs that tell some of the stories of the mythologies that we'll see within. We'll talk about those stories, of course, as we get into the Quartz. And then beautiful border all the way around completes the front of the tuck box. Fantastic artwork on this one. Turning to the sides, you just get Eva, get a nice look at that pearlescent stock there. Same thing on the other, your typical ad copy at the bottom. You can see this one's printed by Legends Playing Card Company. And then the top, underneath that seal there, just features the 4 pips and a little bit more ornamentation there at the top. Back features an embossed and blue foiled version of the back design of the cards. Look more at that in a second. And then it finishes out with the matching stamped, postage stamp style tuck seal. And again, features those pictographs running down, and you can see that it's numbered. So there's about 700 of these decks in total. And of course, I got number 39. So you open it up, get another image of Prometheus, the snake there in the center with that emblem with the apple in the middle, symbol of Eve's temptation at the Garden of Eden. And then the circular emblems here on the inner flaps, and nothing printed on the interior of the box. So that is the tuck box. Absolutely striking. I love the color combination, and it continues with the cards themselves. You open it up, you can see this is a fully gilded deck, and it makes use again of that ice blue color. Absolutely fantastic color scheme. Matches beautifully with the white and the hot foiling on the backs of the cards as well. Just a really striking color and super clean gilding on this one. Sometimes you'll see some little chips in the gilding, but this one has none. And it's just a striking color. Never seen this before, and absolutely love the colors that he chose on this one. And speaking of those back designs, here it is. So all done in hot foil. And again, you can see the great shine of this and that really great color that he chose on this one. So the white background and then the blue foil forming up the design. Same imagery that we saw on the front of the tuck box, this time with the two-way image of Eva there, top and bottom, with Prometheus at her side, and then surrounded with all sorts of almost random bits of symbology throughout. That's something you'll see a lot on Giovanni's decks. Love that sort of double heart there in the center, just sort of forming the breakup in the middle, and the nice borders and the fluttering of leaves, almost like the collapse of the Garden of Eden all around Eva there. So beautiful look to it, finishes with that thin white poker border, and like I said, just that mix of the color on the back design and that gilding. Striking combination, and one of my favorite color schemes on any Eva deck, possibly my favorite. But let's check out the cards as well. So talking about the aces and the court cards together at the back, but let's start off by looking at the number cards. So here they are, also done with metallics, this time just metallic ink, so not hot foiled or anything like that. But you get the pips done in that super dark blue color, and then the background done in super shiny ice blue metallic inks. Really vivid coloring on these, and that background is really striking. Just kind of that frame with that hypnotic circular pattern in the middle, and then again sort of repetition of those pictographs that give a cryptic depiction of the stories we'll explore with the quartz. Anyways, you go through the number cards, all in that center frame there, kind of a tall, elongated view of the pips. But otherwise, pretty familiar feel to these overall. So the red cards go to that kind of crimson color, pretty classic red color, and then the dark blue on the black cards. So there's your number cards going through the clubs and then into the hearts. You'll see, by the way, that pictograph changes as we go to each one of the suits. And that's because each one of the suits ends up telling a different story. So anyway, that's the number cards, but now we come to one of the things that is the highlight in pretty much any Thirdway deck I've ever checked out, and that's going to be the quartz. Giovanni does an amazing job with his quartz, and you can see these are no exception. The quartz of Eva, though, do something that's entirely different that I absolutely love. So each one of the suits tells the story of a creation myth, and it does so with a chronological set of quartz that are all depicting a single character. In fact, all the characters in the Eva deck are female, and it depicts them throughout their journey. So the three court cards and in fact the ace all depict that character as they go through their creation story. It's something I've never really seen in any other deck, and it's one of the most memorable aspects of this deck. Absolutely love it. Now you see what I mean as we get into things. And by the way, if you've seen the quartz in other Eva decks, these have actually been updated. So these are new, refreshed looks. So same characters, same stories, but some refreshed looks to the artwork. And I think it came out great. But anyway, let's start off. The spades kick things off with the story of Pandora out of Greek mythology. So according to legend, Pandora was the first human woman and a creation of Hephaestus and Athena, the gods. She was sent to Earth with this forbidden box and then instructed never to open it. So the Jack of Clubs shows her when she first comes to Earth in her kind of more innocent state. You can see the box there in front of her, still locked and sealed as she promised. A beautiful two-way court card, and then the surrounding imagery, just so much going on. I love the use of the sort of ribbons here to create extra motion, and the multiple colors of metallics. You get both the green and the blue here. Absolutely beautiful combination. But anyway, continuing on with the story. So as we go to the queen, we see our first appearance in the quartz of that snake Prometheus again, this time whispering temptation, kind of piquing the curiosity of Pandora as she kind of eyes that box over there, now kind of wondering whether she should open it. And then in the end, Pandora on the King of Spades opts to open the box, ultimately unleashing the evils on the world. So you can see the box there has now been opened, and the demon wings, the serpents, all symbols of the evils that she's unleashed onto the world. And finally, on the Ace of Spades, you get a look at sort of the aftermath of that. So there's the open box. The spade pip now is kind of symbolic of those evils that are exploding out of the box. And of course, you get that metallic view of Pandora as she looks on in the background. So fantastic set of quartz, but now let's move on to the clubs. So the clubs actually continue the story of Pandora in a way. This time it's focusing on Pandora's daughter, Hera. So her origin story starts as she's warned by Prometheus the snake. You can see him here again whispering in her ear, that recurring character. And she's warned about a giant rainstorm that's going to flood the entire earth. So she and her husband Deucalion end up boarding a giant ark in which they float on the floodwaters and are kind of spared from their demise. And you can see her here on the Queen as she stares out at the waters and the flood from beyond, so that kind of nervous look on her face. But anyway, in the end of the story, she and her husband emerge as the only survivors of that horrible, horrible storm. And now they have the responsibility to repopulate the world. And so there she is, kind of proud and strong, emerging as the new beginning of life. And the Ace of Clubs tells a little bit of the story of how she actually managed to repopulate the world. And so according to the story, she went and talked to the Oracle. The Oracle told her to throw bones, or basically rocks, of the mother, Gaia, over her shoulder, and then wherever the rocks landed, they would sprout up, and then humans would rise in their place. So you can see the 3 rocks there, almost like she's throwing them over her shoulder, symbolizing her repopulating the earth. Another really cool story. Now let's go to the diamonds. So this is actually a story I'd never really heard before I came across the Eva decks. It's a story of Lilith, who is the first woman as told in certain Jewish traditions. So it was said that she actually lived with Adam, the same Adam who married Eve in the Christian tradition, but she lived with Adam in the Garden of Eden. So you can see her here kind of in her beginning state, her more pure, innocent state as a resident of the Garden of Eden. And then in the Queen of Diamonds, we see kind of the darker side of it. So she lived with Adam, lived in peace, but she was also in a way entrapped and enslaved by Adam. So those kind of binds around her symbolizing how she felt trapped, and you can kind of see some of the frustration a little bit building in her face. And then finally, she ended up rebelling after falling in love with a fallen angel named Samael. The King of Diamonds and ultimately the Joker as well depict her in her sort of demoness state. You can see the demon wings rising out as she runs off from the Garden of Eden, leaves Adam, and goes off to live with Samael. Love the colors on this one. Those hits of red to go with the blue just really stand out on the red cards. And then finally, we turn to the namesake of the deck. The hearts tell the story of Eva. So this is, like I said a couple of times, follows the Christian tradition of Adam and Eve. So after initial creation, she married Adam and they lived together in peace in the Garden of Eden. And you can see her there on the jack and that kind of serene look on her face. But once again, Prometheus comes in. So you can see that snake once again appearing and whispering temptation to her, this time tempting her to eat from the tree of knowledge that God had put there and forbidden her to eat from. So she, of course, is sort of listening, pondering the words there. You can see the apple from the tree there on her shield or on that emblem. And then the King of Hearts, she finally gives into that temptation, eats from the Garden of Eden, gains knowledge, but then is ultimately banished along with Adam from Eden forever. So you can see the fallen leaves there, almost symbolic of the fall of Eden there, and the suicidal sword there, again, kind of a symbolic representation of her fall, but still defiant and in a way bringing knowledge to mankind. And the Ace of Hearts gives us once again that kind of darker depiction after she's been cast out of paradise. And see the demon wings there, another kind of symbol of her fall. And that is it. That is the Quartz and the Aces. Love those, love the stories that go with them, and quite frankly, love the entire deck. It's just beautifully done. The color scheme on this one, absolutely stunning. Handling on this one, so these do come from Legends, so nice, super thin feeling cards, but they handle really, really nicely, even with that gilding. Very, very smooth handling. So if you are crazy enough to open this one up and use it for gameplay, I don't think you're going to be disappointed at all. But anyway, that is the look at the Free the Pip Friday for Eva White Rose. Gotta say, Eva was already one of my favorite designs from Thirdway Industries, and White Rose, for me, may have just taken it to another level. This has got to be one of, if not my favorite of the Eva line. So if you like what you see here, like I said up the top, go check out the Thirdway Industries Patreon, because right now that is the only way that you're going to be able to get a hold of this deck without going to the secondary market. And in addition to that, the Patreon has all sorts of other advantages, so can't recommend it highly enough. Been a follower of it since the very beginning, will be in the future, and if we keep getting annual rewards like this, it's going to be well worth it. So anyway, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews, more unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.